Introduction by Edward Albert Meyer. At the age of 5, I had my first conscious UFO experience. Editors note the first experience was the seeing of zigzagging stars, while the event at the age of 5 was the second. This was the observation of a great disc-like flying object. It was on June 2, 1942, at exactly 9:00 a.m., near Bioch, in Canton, Zurich. Together with my father, I was standing behind our house beside a large nut tree, and looking eastward in the sky, like being attracted, but only vaguely knowing why. I felt an until now unknown desire in myself, which compelled me to look high above the eastern horizon for something. This seemed very mysterious to me then. I just felt this strange desire, and I looked for anything in the azure blue sky, on this rather warm and beautiful summer morning. 10 or 15 minutes may have passed, before my eyes fastened onto something peculiar. From out of the sky, with tremendous speed, a silver flash shot down, hurled like a gigantic metallic arrow, over Essen-Moserberg, right toward the 75-meter-tall Reformed church steeple. However, just short of this large tower, the silver flash cut to the right and shot past it directly toward our house, and with great speed shot upward again. In that small part of a second, the swift flash became gigantically large and round, to a very large flat metal disc. It was like a huge discus about 200 to 300 meters in diameter. The disc sped along at approximately 200 meters high above us, completely silent. Like a flash, as it had appeared only a second before in the east, it now disappeared to the west over the Hagen forest. For a long time I stared westward after the disappearing object, and I soon realized that my perplexed father was also staring into the west, while shaking his head. I asked him about the fast-flying disc, and he observed reflectively that this must be Hitler's newest secret weapon. At 5 years of age, this answer was quite insufficient for me. The American bombers often flew over our village dropping bombs, while as often happened, German Stukas and other fighter planes could be seen across the border. In my estimation they were as primitive as the American bombers, some of which had been shot down directly over our village by the Swiss Air Force, or otherwise captured. This did not seem to agree with my father's explanation. He, being a straightforward, dependable, old-fashioned man, harbored no great thoughts about technical developments. But I, as a 5-year-old boy, was very interested in such marvels produced by the wild and malicious warmongers around the world. I followed, by radio, the continuous bombing by the Americans, and the rolling thunder of the heavy tank and artillery guns which carried to our village over many kilometers day and night. It was simply not logical to me, that all the primitive and murderous weapons of the Second World War could have anything in common with the futuristic disc I had seen. These and other reflections about two very different worlds rushed together in my mind, as I pondered this below that nut tree. There had to be another explanation than my father had given, not only because of my thoughts, but also because the disc suddenly seemed to me rather familiar. I could not get over the thought that I had already seen the same or very similar discs elsewhere, and under more peaceful circumstances. My thoughts led me to watch the sky day and night, especially at night, when I could see traveling stars high in the sky, some bigger and some smaller. Satellites were still unknown at this time, and I already recognized the bombers and fighters sufficiently by their continuous appearance. On the other hand, these more primitive aircraft were not able to fly so high, like these driven and often flashing stars, which many times executed zigzag flights, like I had never seen any airplane make. Just as I saw those traveling stars then, one can see them today, very high in the sky, at 20 to 40 kilometers high, at night in a clear sky. To be sure you are not watching satellites, the best time to observe is between 10:00 p.m. and 2:00 a.m., because at this time the Earth fully shadows the sky from the sunlight behind it, and it cannot reflect from passing satellites above. Even, in some cases, certain scientists try to affirm the contrary. As the UFOs perform their controlled flights high in the sky, they are usually seen no bigger than stars. My first observations were alone at night, when I observed them as traveling stars. However, this changed in a rather short time. One nice and warm late summer day, I saw, to my delight, a spherical object high in the sky, slowly approaching and descending, until I could see it was a regular sphere. Then it disappeared in a flash without a trace, completely silent and without any obvious cause. Following that time, these daylight operations were repeated, and one day I again felt something strange in me. It was like a voice somewhere in my head, and also inexplicable pictures presented themselves. The inner voice and pictures advised me intently and continuously to search for answers, and also to find them. This began in the late autumn of 1942, only a few months before my 6th birthday. These strange thoughts, the inner voice, and the pictures began to worry me, because in my ignorance of such things, the thought came to me, that I might be going crazy. This was the reason I turned to one of the Protestant ministers, in the hope that he could help me. He did very readily, and with evident knowledge about this matter, although I had never told him anything before. It seemed to me, that he was very well informed on this UFO matter, and had considerable knowledge in this respect. So he advised me about UFOs, the inner voice and the pictures, and explained to me in much detail what I should know about telepathy. Besides this, he explained to me many other facts, which I, at that young age, did not understand very well, but in later years learned that this old clergyman was an initiate. I did as the priest advised, and tried intently to direct my thoughts to the often heard voice, and to address it. One day, a short while later, I suddenly felt my thoughts making contact somewhere, somehow. The first reaction from the other side was like a gentle light laughter, which I heard deep inside of me. It was pleasant and relaxing, which calmed and delighted me. The contact then faded away once more, and I neither heard the voice nor saw the images in my mind. Suddenly, all was quiet again. However, before this, while I continued my observations, in November of the year 1942, I had a rather peculiar experience. It happened in the Langenzigen, in an out-of-the-way meadow behind the Hagen forest, which was often used for glider landings. One day, from a cloudy sky, a pear-shaped spaceship descended, and landed on the ground. Out of the craft came a very old man, and he signaled for me to come to him. I followed him without a word, and allowed him to take me into his spaceship. Almost immediately, I noticed on the various strange screens, that we were very high above the ground. The pear-shaped ship then descended again, and settled gently onto the ground, without me feeling the touchdown at all. The old man motioned for me to walk out, which I did, and which felt like walking in a dream. As soon as I was out, the spaceship rose straight up, and disappeared into the sky at a splitting speed, as I stared in utter astonishment. Deep in thought, I headed home, deliberating whether I should tell anyone about my experience. I decided to keep silent, and not even tell the priest. So I lived with my secret, and became all the more reserved. During my simple UFO observations over the next few years, another far-reaching experience occurred. Although explained by the priest, I had no idea of the different forms of telepathy, therefore, I was startled, when on my 8th birthday, February 3, 1945, a new voice suddenly rose in my mind. It instructed me to now carefully learn and collect the knowledge that would be transmitted to me in this way. I feared I may be losing my sanity, therefore, I was afraid. I did not dare entrust this new situation to my parents, because I did not think they would be able to understand me. On the other hand, I did not trust this inner voice, which this time, was very clear in my mind, because I had the thought that this could be some form of delusion. However, I always tried to calm myself. And I again decided to confide this new situation to the priest, who listened very patiently and attentively. I told him everything, even the smallest details. Gently, this wise man smiled, and said that I had no need to worry, because he was informed about these things. However, regretfully, he could only do so much, and teach me thoroughly certain things. In this respect, it would be necessary that I keep absolutely silent, as these things did not agree with his profession. He would continue his job working as a priest, due to certain reasons, at the same location. I did not understand then exactly what he was talking about, and also did not grasp the deeper meaning. It was only many years later, when I had already long forgotten about the priest, that I clearly came to understand that the voice in my mind had nothing to do with insanity or delusion, but was only another kind of telepathy, and was the thought voice of a man who lived on a distant planet. The priest explained that the voice sounding in my mind was a telepathic communication method, like the other telepathy event of 1942. This form of telepathy could be exercised over unlimited distances without impediment, except for spiritual blockades. For the first time I heard the expression telepathy, when the priest called this form of communication by that word. It could also be accomplished from one to another through their normal waking consciousness. A few years before, when he spoke of telepathy, he spoke of spiritual telepathy, however, not the overriding of one's primary thoughts, transmitted through another's mind. In the second conversation, he explained to me that I was exceptionally receptive to extremely high frequencies, and that people of lower vibrations, such as many people on Earth, for example, would not be able to force their thoughts into my mind. This would be only exclusively possible for higher developed men and women, because I had come into this life to carry out a special mission, and therefore, I had to be protected from malicious influences of lesser developed people. The priest's explanations seemed logical, however, he surprised me when he said my life would be very difficult and full of private suffering, which has been accurate to this day. With his explanations, I overcame my fear, and troubled myself to enlarge the telepathic contacts, which until then had been one-sided. I directed questions and received answers too, which confirmed what the priest had said. These telepathic contacts turned out to be communications with a man named Spath. I was initiated into what appeared to be extraordinary events, which often seemed to me rather crazy. The consequence of this was that it all but isolated me from my environment. I allowed intrigues to take place against me without defense, as I had also done before. By this, I became the scapegoat for many malicious deeds, which occasionally happened in the village. However, I did not care about this, and always silently smiled inside myself when such lies were given against me, even though I suffered greatly from them. I was often punished by my father so severely, that afterward I could neither sit nor stand. In this way, my entire position became toughened, as well as at school, which I began to skip. However, this did not disturb me, because I was learning much more through the telepathic contacts with Spath. Through my many unexcused absences, the greatest amounting to 173 inches a single year, peculiarly, nothing happened from the school administration. On the contrary, they left matters as they were, until I had completed all the school levels, except for only 6 months. The school administration then struck back. However, these events, which were only a tiny jot of my life, had some influence over the course of my subsequent years, about which I won't go into detail here. It was then, in 1945, when Spath began telepathic contacts with me, and I, turned by the priest's explanation, responded positively to these contacts. However, I still did not know then, that the first contact of a few years ago sprang from the same source, and the old man who had taken me with him in the pear-shaped spaceship, was the same Spath, himself, who now informed me telepathically about being prepared for a very difficult, and most important mission. I now had to decide for myself, whether I really wanted to undertake the burden of this mission or not. From his explanations, I had been selected for this before I was beget into this life, and was, according to this, under steady supervision by this man. That this was really true, I was able to confirm by an event, which happened to me at the age of 6 months. I had fallen ill from a very severe case of pneumonia, and hope for my survival had been largely given up. Late in the night, Dr. Strebel, a medical doctor, had prepared my parents for the shock, that on this night I would finish my life. As I lay in a coma, very near the point of permanently leaving my physical body, Spath had intervened and healed my body, using a technical device from a spaceship. Of course I wanted to examine this statement of Spath's, so I asked my mother about events of when I was only several months old. To my astonishment, she confirmed Spath's explanation, and said that a miracle had happened, as there really was no hope left for my very young life. Even Drive Strebel had called it a miracle, which was clearly unexplainable by him, because according to his medical tests the night before, I should have been dead in the morning. Sfath explained to me many other things as well, taught me, and gave me much information, some of which I am to keep silent the rest of this life. So the time passed, until the late summer of 1945, when once again, I walked alone deep in thought through the Langenzigen of the Hagen forest near Bioch. I had walked some distance along, when suddenly, Sfath announced himself by his now becoming familiar telepathic method. He explained to me that I should wait there for a few minutes and not get worried. It did not take long, only a few short minutes, when a silvery spaceship flew from the sky. It was a rather strange formation of metal, not more than 5 or 6 meters in diameter. Near to me, the object touched the ground. It was the same pear-shaped flying machine, and I couldn't help but stare in fascination. Soon I could see something happening on one side of the spaceship. An opening formed itself, and someone stepped out. It was an already very old man, who was wearing a very strange suit. He was now walking towards me, like before, when years ago I saw him for the first time. This time, however, he was in what looked like a deep-sea diving suit, which was quite silvery on the outside, and of which the helmet was missing. Yet, through this suit his entire appearance seemed venerable and wise, and I still remember very well how he seemed to me like a venerable old patriarch. A bit awkwardly, the old man walked up to me and spoke in my mother's language, the flat dialect used in our village. However, evidently he was a bit unacquainted with it, because he pronounced some syllables incorrectly, which struck me immediately. He explained that he was Sfath, and that I should come with him into his spaceship. Under an easy sort of compulsion I followed him, as I had done a few years before, to the peculiar pear-shaped spaceship. I was then somehow elevated through the door, without recognizing how I was lifted. Suddenly, the door closed itself behind us, and Sfath led me through another door into an inner part of his ship, to a small room in which there were 3 peculiar chairs. The walls and strange desks were full of instruments and controls. I also saw some different small windows, in which people moved, and in some I saw the entire landscape around the exterior of the spaceship. Sfath then asked me to sit down, as he worked with some apparatus there, which I did not understand. In the different small illuminated windows, I saw that the figures and images of the landscape were changing, and I suddenly realized I was seeing a bird's-eye view of the Earth. Inquiringly, I now turned my eyes to Sfath, who turned to me and sat down. He explained, those little windows are not windows, but viewing screens, which at present, and also in the future, would be developed on Earth. It treated of a picture transmission by certain energies. Then he explained to me, that now we were very high above the ground, at about 70 kilometers height. Here we would stay for a few hours, as he needed to tell me some very important facts, in order to educate me on various matters. He explained, that the reason for me being already developed to the awareness of an average 35-year-old man from Earth, was due to his efforts, and that my spiritual development was about equal to this age. I had already passed and left behind the current Earth standards of 1945 for someone aged 35, therefore, nobody would be able to answer many of my spiritually directed questions. It is interesting for me today to recall, having then felt no fear when Sfath told me we were flying 70,000 meters above the Earth. I did not even marvel at this, as everything appeared rather familiar to me, and clearly self-explanatory. In fact, I was not very shocked about this explanation by Sfath, and I even kept stoic calmness, when he told me, that he would further monitor me only until the beginning of the 1950s. After this time, he would hand the mission over to someone else, as his current life was nearing an end. Sfath explained, that the people on Earth were approaching a very dangerous time, and the still-running Second World War would see its end in the following year of 1945, because the time would come, when America would drop atomic bombs on the country of Japan. Sfath also made other statements of great importance, concerning my life and mission. Sfath never told me his actual age, however, I estimated him to be about 90 to 95 years old. He also never told me his origin, and of what my mission would eventually become. The first I knew of the last matter, came decades later from someone else. However, much would still happen until then, and I would meet with many things, which often forced me near the edge of delusion, and also to the edge of death. Yet, I was always able to bridge the dangerous situations on my own, and only in a few cases was I given help, about which I now know for certain today. This was always directly or indirectly done by highly advanced extraterrestrial people. For the most part, I was left to my own devices, and all actions I had to master by myself. From this I learned very much, and was actually able to profit by each situation. The stay with Sfath high above the earth lasted a bit more than 4 hours, during which he transmitted great knowledge to me. At the end of the meeting, he told me to lean back in the chair, after which he then placed a formation of innumerable wires and tiny instruments around my head. Curious about this, and what might then happen, I looked calmly at him, and how he worked with the buttons and switches, and suddenly, I realized great things inside myself. There was suddenly inside my mind, a great wellspring of knowledge, and I understood many things new and old. I felt quite suddenly peculiar forces penetrating into me, like suddenly I knew events and occurrences of the future. I wanted to cure people of illnesses and many other things. Then all at once these influences stopped, and Sfath removed the strange instruments from my head. He then explained that I would now have the abilities which were awakened within me by the instrument, which were abilities I had developed myself in previous lifetimes. I would not lose these abilities now, however. I was warned not to use them egotistically, for profit, or for demonstrations. The knowledge and talents awakened inside of myself were to serve my own development, in regards to the difficult mission which I was to carry out. If someone ever were to try and penetrate my mind, an implanted fuse would automatically block all penetration efforts, and it would remain active until the danger passed. This, he explained, included any scientific tests, and possibly powerful influences from other people. Should anyone try to force entry into my mind, such as attempts by hypnosis, the blockade would come into effect. The block was so powerful, that under certain circumstances, it could threaten the lives of those trying to force their way into my mind. Saturday, February 3, 1945, 12:10 p.m. Sfath Edward, listen very closely to what I have to say to you. It is not unintentional, rather for certain reasons, that our series of meetings has come about. The reasons lead back to determinations that lie very far back in the past, and in accord with the measure to which you are arranged in a self-determined task, during the time of your present life, as was repeatedly the case in your spiritual lineage of reincarnations in earlier lives, in other personalities and bodies, in order to fulfill the mission of an announcer, and bring the people on earth peace, true love, freedom, and unity, as well as open, unencrypted wisdom and knowledge of spiritual matters, and that which pertains to the laws of creation. Because of these determinations, which advance far into time, you have entered life as announcer of the laws of creation, and therefore, as a prophet. However, you will first take up and fulfill your actual mission, when the time has become ripe for that, and indeed with the day of January 28 in the year of 1975. Until then, you will undergo rigorous learning within many countries on earth, and with several great and wise teachers, who will be instructed about your advent, and who have been in connection with me for a very long time, or will be in connection with me in the time to come. As with all great announcers and sages, who have taught on this planet since time immemorial, and have brought the people on earth the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman, peace, love, knowledge, harmony and wisdom, as well as real freedom, you have also been born an inconspicuous man, and like all genuine announcers and sages, you will also first need to learn very much, before you take up and fulfill your task at the proper time. However, you must consider, that you will endure a quite difficult life, often full of deprivation, which from the year 1965, will increase in a way, as to demand a great deal of strength from you in many ways. This will eventually lead to your spouse, who you will meet and marry in the given year, which is inevitable, and will be very closely related to your mission. To this end, the matrimonial step is necessary, because your real strengths, which you will require at this time, will be initially built up through this difficult path you will take. However, if you become aware, that everything in this regard, which intrudes on you, will be pitiless and unavoidable, then only by you surviving and mastering this difficult lesson, may you fulfill your duty imperturbably, and without fickleness and doubt, in absolute honesty, modesty, real love and joy for your task, and for the people on earth. However, you will not be spared from much grief, nor from slanderous accusations and hate, which in many ways will lead back to your spouse. Yet, you must powerfully and imperturbably confront these attacks, which will also include assaults against your life, because you may fulfill your mission, only if you overcome everything. However, you will not bear the worst machinations for the rest of your current life, because your spouse will maliciously turn away from you, when she finally realizes that you will go your way imperturbably to fulfill your mission. Unfortunately, she will be so blinded by hate, that she will covertly spread further slander about you, and will even practice malicious intrigues against you. However, there will be no need to compete with this, if you remain studious, as I will instruct you to be. You are now already very wise for your young age, in a way that older people feel drawn to you, enjoy conversations with you, and are often astonished by the knowledge that is already yours, therefore, they frequently ask you for advice. Your words contain a vibrancy that shows great inner power, and has the ability to help people. Through this, you will help those with vices, as well as the strife-ridden and ignorant, into a state of enlightenment. Because of this inner power, which also expresses your modesty, honesty and a love for people, a great amount of trust will be placed in you, to which you have already done justice since our acquaintance, and are constantly making an effort to never injure or misuse. The value of your words and virtues lies in the inspirational form with which you impart everything. When you speak with people, your words contain such a modest and honest power, that they do not simply fade away unheeded, rather they are contemplated, and the actual truth sought in their meaning. This contemplation of your words often occurs in a meditative way, to such an extent that action frequently results. Your title is Edward Albert Meyer, and as the value and meaning of your current title expresses, you are a protector of the treasure, which in this case, relates to the treasures found in the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman, which you will learn from all things, and will teach the people on earth. However, you will not be called this title during most of your current life, because on a certain day in Tehran, within Persia, you will take on the title Billy, with which you will become known worldwide. Also, the designation Beam will arrive, which will come from the beginning letters of all your names, therefore, from Billy Edward Albert Meyer. However, in spite of this, you are to remain a simple man, and should also remain in honesty and modesty. You will not make a fuss about your standing, rather, at a given time, you will establish yourself in the background, so as not to be valued as something special, and to not let yourself be admired or adored. You will do very well at this, because the people on earth are very attentive to their idols, to which they dependently and pathologically oblige themselves, and whom they emulate, thereby denying their own inner strength. This is not the best way to live, therefore, you will do well by going your own way of honesty and modesty in the background, which is now already becoming your usual manner. Work in silence, and do not go into the public too often. Let others do this for you, as they will not be flattered and adored. Perform your work and mission in written form, and stay in the background when possible. Only bring the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman in direct verbal form, to those who will belong to a close group, which will assemble around you. However, only be like a mirror for them, which they may look into and see you, indeed, just as you really are, and as you present yourself to them, so they will see that you are merely a man, and not a super being placed above them looking down. However, in spite of this, be like a fire, and do not stay too far from them with the warmth of your love, so they may come to you at any time and feel your warmth, security and love, as well as your peace, freedom, poise and harmony. However, do not get too close to them with your wisdom, knowledge and all of your understanding, so they do not get burned. Therefore, you should not choose the infinite power of your spirit for official demonstrations, rather, employ it within your own group, which will be established in 1975, however, do it only to provide evidence of the vast power consciousness the spirit within every man and woman has, in order to show them they may be developed freely, by anyone who puts forth the required effort. Therefore, learn the appropriate distance from other people, so you do not get too close to them. However, do not stay too distant from them either. You have incarnated into a physical body on this planet, in order to give, not, however, to take. Therefore, always take only that which is rightly yours, which you can think of as your own earnings, or which has been given to you out of love, respect and togetherness. You should not demand payment for something, if you have not performed the corresponding work for it. However, all forms of labor are worth the proper compensation, yet, you should not ask for more. It will not be, however, that you disseminate your written works free of charge, because this does not appear feasible with the current money economy system in use on the planet Earth. However, you should not give attention to that now, because in time, the traditional teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman will bring understanding to the group which will be formed, and the financial means will also be established, with which your writings and books can be professionally prepared and sold at reasonable prices. Every beginning will indeed start with you, for which reason you should work to be thrifty, in order to properly finance the start of your mission, when the time becomes ripe for that. Already at the beginning of your task, you will find modest help, which will gradually expand. However, never demand, because you and your mission are not the same as the various religions, circles and so forth, which are very prominent on the planet Earth, as well as their leaders, priests and many illogical concepts. Constantly give everything you are able to give, if the people are ready to receive it. However, never give more in regards to the teachings, wisdom and knowledge, than the people are capable of comprehending and coping with. They almost always want to know more than they can handle, therefore, you should only spread as much wisdom and knowledge needed, according to the immediate state of things. If their comprehension of the actual truth climbs, in regards to the learning material, their new understanding will automatically expand in its value. However, as a general rule, this first only comes about, when a correspondingly precise question is asked. Nevertheless, always be aware, that it will only be a handful of people who honestly ask about the actual and essential, in regards to the essence of everything spiritual and recreational, and in order to teach them, you will fulfill your mission during your current life. You stand in this incarnation, in order to teach the people on earth the truth of all truth, so they may gain the clarity of comprehension, and free themselves from the many illogical concepts of the various religions, and their extremely harmful and dangerous consequences. Through the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman, which you will learn and spread starting in the year 1975, the real truth will be revealed, thereby fulfilling the people on earth's deepest desires for true love, freedom, peace and harmony. The teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman have been the teachings of Nokodemian, Hanuk and many of your earlier personalities since time immemorial. You should, as it has been in all past times, and as a reciprocal gift, require only a will to learn, love, obtain peace, freedom, harmony, joy and industriousness. However, the spiritual teachings should not be used to attain wealth, therefore, when you need to acquire such, you should do it through manual labor or other means, and should never become wealthy through the teachings. It will indeed be required, that you also finance your livelihood, for which reason, you must take it upon yourself, that you have, through regulated provisions, a secure position in regards to your work, which, however, will never permit a foothold for the acquisition of wealth. Your task will be very difficult, and you will need to work a great deal, indeed, in regards to the mission itself, as well as for your livelihood before starting the mission. Additionally, you will not be simply confined to one occupation, because in order for you to master everything required, you will learn and practice many different occupations. That which you learn, will be especially important in the year 1977, when you will construct a site of learning, and indeed, quite near the birthplace of your mother. Therefore, you will have in your life, a very large amount of work to do, indeed, an unusual amount, and also unusually much to learn and experience. Yet, this is necessary, in order for you to successfully fulfill your task. However, this will not exalt you above others, therefore, you are not their master in regards to the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman, and no one will become master over you either. You will be a guide for a small group beginning in 1975, however, not in the form of a mighty one, ruler or master, because only then may the people on earth move freely, and be independent in their thoughts, feelings and emotions, as well as in their own actions and behavior. We have come to teach you oneness and unity, not humility, subservience or bondage, nor enslaved servitude or fanaticism, also not disunity, dualism nor a trinity, as it is with certain religions. Oneness and unity bound with true love, as well as with peace, genuine freedom and harmony, are not of a political nature, rather, they are values that are only to be gained through personal insight, and recognition of the actual truth, and indeed, without money or any other kinds of wealth, without war, dispute, hate, force, bombs or weapons of any kind. You will help produce an inexhaustible wellspring of wisdom, knowledge, love, freedom, peace and harmony. A wellspring from which all people, of every race, faith, skin color and opinion may be refreshed. And that which you desire, the thing you want to bring the people on earth, is oneness, peace, unity, wisdom, knowledge, love, freedom, and harmony, in the real truth and understanding, that in the entire recreational realm, in the entire universe, everything is one and joined together. However, this being one with everything, is the result of the enormous power and immeasurable love of consciousness, which is within everything, and requires no payment for living. The people on Earth's biggest problems, are mostly originating from their vast ignorance, regarding the reality of creation and its laws. This is not a problem of one single group, or of a particular direction of belief, rather, it is a problem of nearly every single man, woman, boy and girl on the planet Earth. In their vast ignorance, the people on Earth are dependent on illusions, wishes, desires, addictions, vices, and on all the pleasures of the material life, from which they are unable to easily free themselves. Through this ignorance, an uncertainty for life spreads out, whereby hate, wars, murder, avarice, jealousy and revenge, as well as all kinds of criminality come into being, such as monstrous, destructive and annihilating weapons, like the atom bombs, which already in a short time, will be misused by the Americans for a deadly and annihilating function, if they destroy the Japanese city of Hiroshima in this year on the 6th of August, through a nuclear weapon operation, and claim hundreds of thousands of dead, then to repeat the same horrendous crime on the 9th of August, with the likewise Japanese city of Nagasaki, which yet again will cost around 100,000 innocent lives. The teachings that you will bring, the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman, is intended to guide the people on earth to the path of truth, love, peace, freedom and harmony. It will transform everyone living on earth. And in order to bring this teaching, you will oblige yourself in relation to your life, as well as in relation to the people on earth. Therefore, you will need to incessantly work very much, in order to fulfill your various coming responsibilities. Through your wisdom and knowledge, as well as through the power of your spirit, your body and through your manual labor, you will point to a long ago forgotten direction of love, peace, freedom, balance, joy and harmony, which will greatly improve the progress and thinking, as well as the feelings, functions and actions of the people on earth. It will be your sincere love, with all of your knowledgeable and wise values, which will help the people on earth, who desperately need your guidance, and who will eventually come to accept our help. Therefore, always be completely honest when they open themselves in regards to you, and the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman, because your goal must always be to teach and to help others. Edward, it will be your task to awaken the people on earth out of their sleep of insanity and ignorance. You will teach them how to be ready for the revolution of truth, as well as for their duty to spread the wisdom and knowledge obtained from the laws of creation. The fulfillment of this duty also comes like a revolution, because very few men and women will take it upon themselves to consciously fulfill this obligation. However, this revolution has not been built on politics, and therefore, sides with no parties at all, for real freedom is arranged in its essence. Accordingly, every single man and woman has the free choice of their thoughts and feelings, as well as their actions and dealings. Therefore, everyone may freely decide whether they will further turn to insanity and ignorance, or to wisdom, knowledge, sincere love, peace, balance and harmony. The teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman, respectively, the teachings of the laws of creation, should be that which points the way for everyone, in order for the people on earth to learn according to their own free will, if they are ready to do that. The teachings will become a movement that spreads worldwide, in order to bring peace, love and freedom, as well many other important values, to the people on this planet. However, you must always be aware that malicious and envious vilifiers, deceivers, liars, thieves, and all kinds of other negative people, will undertake many murderous attacks on you, and will try to impair and destroy your entire work, whereby some will even accuse you of terrible things before the law, in order to destroy your mission. However, always be confident, because if you undeviatingly and thoughtfully carry out the necessary work for your mission, live virtuously, preserve your modesty, and keep honest love in its place within yourself. Ultimately, every attack of all kinds will become beneficial for you, and will come to improve your success. Therefore, it will come about that everything concocted against you negatively, deceitfully, murderously, slanderously, maliciously, enviously, or with theft in mind, constantly produces progress for you and your mission. Your group, which will be built up from you, will grow as a nucleus, just as the outer groupings, which will eventually be spread to every country on earth. In this respect, electronic and other technology will be very helpful to you, for in the time to come, everything in this regard will develop so rapidly, that anything which is considered new, will quickly become obsolete again within a short time. Due to these developments, you will be able to disperse the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman to everyone on earth, because the information will reach its destination within a fraction of a second. Therefore, it will not be necessary for you to constantly defend yourself against attacking behavior directed against you, because all who advance against you in any kind of negative way, only cause damage to themselves. Always maintain your neutrality, in regards to the many attacks against you and your mission. Learn to control yourself in these matters, and to always remain calm, for this is often the best defense against a malicious attack. You will learn this already very soon, at your young age, because the events and situations will come to you, and will help you in living without fear. You will also bear much pain through your thoughts and feelings, as well as through your emotions, which you will learn to master. Also, you will not remain spared from physical pain, because in 1964, you will encounter a situation in which you lose your left arm. That will, however, be an incentive for you to face further difficult lessons, which you will have to withstand and overcome, through which you will, however, be enabled to construct a safe place together with those who gather around you, which you will call the Semnyasi Silver Star Center, and from where you, with help from those who will stand by you, will start spreading the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman, and the laws of creation. Therefore, my request of you, is for you to build up your strengths, and always apply and control your energies in good measure, because they will be of enormous significance, so that you may successfully do your work, as will your honest love, wisdom, and your high and far-reaching knowledge of the spiritual and recreational matters, whereby I must admit, that in this regard, you will overtake me and even all those who will come after me to maintain the meetings with you. Only on certain grounds will they be more ignorant than me regarding spiritual knowledge, because they also have very much to learn, which is why you will also be their teacher, and is something they will have to recognize on their own. However, that will take a long time, but they will eventually learn who your past incarnations have been, and which abilities and knowledge you possess. However, it is not my role to reveal this to you now, because this duty belongs to people much more advanced than me, namely, the Arahat Athersat A level, which will teach you through spiritual telepathy, while I can only pass on my knowledge to you verbally, and through my various devices. Therefore, also practice spiritual telepathy, in which I, along with many others, will instruct you, because the Arahat Athersat A level of existence can only communicate with you in this manner. However, this will only be one-sided, therefore, you will receive only that which you are ready for. In practicing together with me, you will learn how to communicate using spiritual telepathy, because I have mastered this just as much as any of the people who will come to visit you after me. This is also the form of telepathy that is able to bridge the vast distances of the universe, and indeed, without any loss of time, whereas the easier form of telepathy reaches only 3 light seconds, which corresponds to about 1,000,000 kilometers. I want to recommend to you that you are always brave and courageous, because it will only then be possible, that at a given time, you also bravely and courageously support your members, because your courage will carry over onto them just as will also many of your other values. As my research has revealed, it will unfortunately be unavoidable that various betrayers will enter your group, who, while they are present and also after they go their way, will want to maliciously and vengefully inflict damage on you in order to destroy you as well as your mission. Unfortunately, aside from some exceptions, it will be members who will join the group as a result of earlier determinations. I will tell you the names of all these and all other group members at a later point in time. Yet always be aware, if you are firmly determined, courageous, honest, modest, virtuous, knowing, wisely unprejudiced as well as full of strength and energy, undeviatingly going your way and letting your true love govern, are persevering, observing your responsibility to yourself, to life and people as well as to the entirety of nature and its life forms, then no kinds of attacks from the people can hurt you. It is entirely the same regardless of whichever kind they may be. You will defy fire, water and storm and thereby visibly verify the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman for those around you. Yet never use your powers of consciousness and of your spirit, in order to gain profit, or in order to put yourself on show. Because if you do employ these powers, be told this another time, then they should and are permitted to only be used for the purposes of instruction or to helpfully stand by the people. And if you should be asked to do such, then do not do it, because otherwise you would evoke dangers through which your work and mission would be endangered. Consider that now already in this regard you are able to produce great power through your consciousness, and do things that are impossible for other people, yet even if you can do them, do not put them on show, except if you are thereby able to give a lesson, or use them for your own enjoyment or relief. More than ever, the coming time is developing into an epoch of great destruction and annihilation. It will begin with the criminal deeds of the Americans, when, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they bring total annihilation and destruction as well as hundreds of thousands of deaths through the dropping of atom bombs, which will already happen shortly, as I already explained to you. In the coming time the people on earth will lower themselves still very much more, as they have done bellicosely since time immemorial, and through murderous religions and their sects, whereby they enslave themselves, especially through religions, to which they have become fanatically dependent and for which no life is too valuable to them, that they would not murder and exploit it, as is also the case with the rulers who know no kind of scruple. But you have come to clarify, for all people, the truth, with open, undiplomatic and honest words, free of empty phrases, and to teach them, so they may find the path to comprehension. But for this, it is necessary that you also occupy yourself with religions and sects, and learn what they are in their essential absence of value. It will be that you enter into them yourself, and learn that you, in your knowledge as well as in your thoughts and feelings, belong to no religion or sect, rather that you are oriented, singly and alone, with the teaching of the Spirit within every man and woman. The teaching of the Spirit within every man and woman will, in the distant future, lead to the raising of the entire terrestrial lineage of people, and indeed that every man and woman consciously recognizes their recreational spirit and its characteristics, and also brings into effect the spiritual values into their outer being, into their current personality. Be told, however, that you must learn and practice tolerance, so you will not be biased regarding religious beliefs of people. Only this qualifies you to teach them in truthfulness, so that they, little by little, are able to free themselves from their dependency on lower powers. You must understand this. And when you begin to understand, then you will also live in simplicity, modesty, honesty and love. This qualifies you to carry the message of your mission, and the teaching of the Spirit within every man and woman, out into the world. This will take effect some days still far in the future, so the angst is worked out of the people on earth, and everyone will be without angst and fear, and indeed also in association with this, one day the employment of weapons for war-related and murderous purposes, and so forth, will cease, and they will only still find utilization for work and self-defense purposes. You must fulfill your task, and to this end, it is also required that you, in word and text, learn the language through which you will spread the teaching of the truth. It is the language that you learn in school, and of which you already have a good command. The German language. Namely, it is this language, which is the most valuable on earth, and offers the finest possibilities to bring the teaching of the Spirit within every man and woman finely nuanced. Therefore, I will instruct you just as much in this language, so you may make it your own in uncommonly many values, and learn to command it in the best possible measure. As well as myself, also helpful to you will be our linguists, who know and command the German language incomparably better in all its details, than is the case with any linguist on earth. So you will learn a good and fluent, expressive and very extensive language, for which many will envy you. You will also develop your own unmistakable and clear writing style, with which you will produce all your texts and books, just as you will also prepare telepathic and technologically telepathic and spiritual telepathic transmissions. You will reproduce your records, which relate to this, true to their meaning without any corruptions, and without any additions, however oriented according to your style of words and writing, so that it becomes unmistakable that it will only be you conveying the messages, pieces of instruction, and in later times, the following talks at meetings. That will, therefore, be a necessity, because many deceivers, thieves, charlatans, victims of delusion, insane and profit-greedy people, will steal your material, adulterate it and make a profit. Also it will unfortunately be, that many of the titles of the people you meet who are of other star systems, as well as the designations of the purely spiritual levels, will be shamefully abused, and the assertion will be made that you would not have the meetings with us from the Plejaren systems, rather they would, or that they had these meetings at the same time as yours, which you and my successors will later call contacts and contact conversations. Then the point in time will come when these lying and slanderous events apply, when your material is thus stolen and many swindlers report worldwide in regard to alleged meetings with me and my successors, and they appear with fraudulent messages and even claim the impossibility that they are in telepathic connection with me or my successors, then these false contact people, as you will then call them, will already be recognizable as they assert that their physical or telepathic meetings and connections exist with beings from the Pleiades system of the space-time configuration, whereby, indeed, these are supposed to be my successors and I. But we do not belong to the space-time configuration, and therefore, also not to this Pleiades system which is still very young in its existence and is little more than 60 million years old, and is absolutely uninhabited and uninhabitable in every regard, when thermobacterial life is disregarded which will disappear again in some tens of millions of years without higher life of some kind ever being able to exist there. Subsequently people will also never exist on these Pleiades systems. And in order to unmask the future swindlers, my successors and you will not express our origins according to our own language term, Plejaren, rather by the terrestrial term, Pleiades, in order that the swindlers will then use this term, whereby they will expose their own fraud and lies as well as slander. If this then happens in greater measure, then you, just as much as my successors, will reveal the truth and set everything right. You should now already know that the successor to me, will, as of 1953, be a young woman from the doll universe, where you will certainly be taken eventually. You will call this woman Askit. She belongs to one of the branches of our people, from which others still occupy the Lyra and Vega systems, however shifted a split second from this space-time plane just as is our space-time configuration in which our Plejaren systems exist. The meetings with Askit and you will last 11 years, just as they will between you and I. Thereafter you will be left alone for 11 years and must learn very much through your own initiative, after which then in the year 1975, a meeting connection with you will again be taken up, and indeed by my granddaughter Semyasi, as well as by my son Padta. They both, in addition to others, will then continuously be your future meeting companions. Semyasi is a prospective Ishwish and Padta is an Ishwish. Also a man and prospective Ishwish with the title Quetzal will be of importance for you, as will also many others. However, their information regarding you and the origin of your spirit form, on the basis of their own learning needs, will not be complete. Consequently, they must first arduously work out this information, whereby it cannot be ruled out they will often make mistakes, which they will then have to make efforts to correct. And in this regard, you will be an intervening and helpful power, in order to also teach them. This instruction will, however, still expand, when through it, the knowledge is first gained about what importance is attached to you, and that this importance also leads back to all your earlier personalities of earlier lives. However, you are not permitted to speak about that, and must keep your secret, which I will still explain to you at a later point in time, until the time has arrived, that my successors have uncovered the secret. Also, In regard to the members of your group, you should always be silent about all things, until the time is ripe to reveal new information or secrets, and indeed, the need for silence is all the same no matter what it relates to. In regards to your mission, and the construction of the center, which will, without doubt, be near Schmiedrei in Tstau, you well know this area, as you have already been there with your mother and father, as well as in regard to your group members and various other things. Initially everything will unfortunately not go according to plan. However, you should not reveal this to my successors, nor to your group members with whom you will establish a community in the year 1978, after forming an initial group in the year 1975. I am explaining to you here and now, that you will achieve the said goal, and will fulfill your mission with certainty. Much vexation and much effort, need and many setbacks will, however, arise as a result, which you should now already know. But, as my look into the future has shown, you will put in place all your power and energy, as well as your ability and knowledge, just as you will your love, peaceful nature and wisdom, and also all your experiences, which you will have entirely collected, learned and built up within yourself in many countries up to that point in time. However, your silence is required, because, were the knowledge about all the effort, need, vexation, setbacks and misunderstandings, as well as in regards to the betrayal in the ranks of your own group, known by my successors and your group members, then the result would be a decline in courage, whereby everything could be destroyed. Also, the meetings between you and my successors would be endangered, and could even be broken off, and of this, the danger will already otherwise exist, as a result of all the unpleasantness which will unavoidably come into being. However, it will be in your strength, love, energy, wisdom and cleverness, that you will handle everything in the correct measure, and lead everything to its goal, whereby especially the teaching of the Spirit within every man and woman and the laws of creation will help you immeasurably. In this matter, I must, however, make you attentive, that you should clearly explain to your group members, as well as to all people who make an effort for the truth, that the teachings of the Spirit within every man and woman are not teachings of salvation, and that you and we also represent no such thing, because every man and woman creates their own salvation, and indeed through their own thoughts and feelings, knowledge, attitude, wisdom and love, as well as, through their peace, freedom and inner well-being. To this end, their mode of operation and all behavior also contribute, as well as their manner and responsibility, how they confront their obligations, the fulfillment of their obligations and how they live. You will build up great trust for all your future works, and for all the successes of your tasks, workings and mission, therefore, always be aware that you will accomplish everything and will not fail. Your knowledge, wisdom, true love, honesty, openness and peaceable nature, as well as your inner freedom, powers of consciousness and your energies, will become so enormous, doubt will never arise within you. All these values, to which also the virtues and many other excellent qualities belong, will become so massive, mighty and powerful in you, that they will surpass all hostilities and malicious intrigues against you in the mission. Yet, to live in healthy modesty, and not allow yourself to become egotistical, is one of the authoritative recommendations, which you should always hold within your mind. Therefore, to this end, you should not turn your powers and energies to doing things that would not be spiritually constructive. Even when your life is often threatened, never turn all your high values against the body and life of your attackers, rather, use them in every case always only for self-defense. And only if you maintain the correctness of your thoughts and feelings, as well as your actions and activities in every respect, and also use your great powers of consciousness in this form, will you be able to have real trust in yourself, and not allow this to be shaken by anything. You should live for life, your mission and for your evolution, as well as for your own health and comfort, for which reason you should be advised, that you, in every respect, always exercise the necessary control over yourself. Never let yourself be enraged, yet scream and bellow if the situation demands it, yet never lose control of yourself, and only do it in such a way, that no negative feelings adversely affect you. To this end, develop a trust and certainty, that you will always maintain control, whereby you should not, however, do anything other than that which corresponds to your nature, because the people should see and recognize that you are just a man, as they themselves are people. However, this means you will not be without fault, and will also learn many new things. You are advised, in spite of this, to have trust in yourself, and indeed until your last breath of your current life. Never let yourself be influenced by illogical teachings, nor be deceived through swindles, sleight of hand and magic tricks. Rather, learn to recognize their falseness, to which end, I will instruct you, so you are more easily able to see through and recognize these kinds of deception. Also fortune-telling, exorcism, clairvoyance and spiritual healing in a deceptive manner, in addition to many other similarly oriented things, will be brought to you, as well as automatic writing and alleged channelizing, which in the coming time will be called channeling. Their rules are only lying, deceit, delusion, illogical concepts, sickness and profit-making, for which reason you should protect yourself from this, as also from the illogical teachings and machinations of the religions and sects, which have arisen from them and will further arise, which will degenerate in such a way in the coming time, that many murders and even mass murders will result from them. Protect yourself from all these things every moment of your life, because lies, deceit, slander and untruth will be more rampant in the coming time than ever before. It will be especially so, when the change of the millennium brings the people on earth into excitement and confusion. Edward, these are the things I had to say to you today, and the explanations that I had to give to you. Further explanations will follow at a later point in time. Until then, however, learn industriously further, and always remain cheerful. If you require my help in regard to learning, you may call upon me anytime, and I will stand by you with advice and instruction. Always think of my words during the many years you will live, and hold yourself to my instructions, and indeed also when I no longer am, and you have grown in your years in everything, and have become very knowing and wise, and have become to the people, an announcer in regards to the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit within every man and woman, respectively, the teaching of the laws of creation. And this is one cause for my appearance, in relation to you, as your pupil, or would let it appear that way, if in the coming time, I could experience your vast wisdom and knowledge. However, I will not be granted this, nevertheless, great joy rules in me, that I am now permitted to teach you, before you have become more knowing and wise than I could ever be in my present life, with my current personality. After these last explanations, Svath brought me back to the ground again, to exactly the same place where we had started from hours before. Then he disappeared once more into his pear-shaped spaceship, and I never saw him again. I only still had occasional telepathic contacts with him for some years afterward, during which, I was transmitted many facts and much knowledge by him. On February 3, 1953, his voice dismissed me, as he sounded old and tired, and then he simply faded away. Only a few hours after Svath's voice was gone, which had become like a part of me, a new voice came into me just as with Svath's. It simply was suddenly there and spoke to me. I felt this voice as being young, fresh, full of force, and quite different from that of Svath's very soft and harmonic voice. This new voice told me that she was a woman, and that I should call her Aska, as she would now be my new companion. So, Aska became my second contact, and through her in the course of the following years, I acquired a phenomenal amount of knowledge and comprehension.